Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex, has revealed she went through a miscarriage. Writing in the New York Times, she said it broke her husband's heart and that she hoped people could commit to asking others if they were okay. The Duchess outlines the events of one morning last July, and she said, "I knew as I clutched my firstborn child that I was losing my second." The Duchess spoke of feeling an almost unbearable grief at losing a child, which she said was experienced by many but talked about by few. "In the pain of our loss," she said, "my husband and I discovered that in a room full of 100 women, 10 to 20 of them will have suffered from miscarriage. Yet despite the staggering commonality of this pain, the conversation remains taboo." Meghan said she shared her experience to urge people to commit to asking others, "Are you okay?" over the Thanksgiving holiday in the US. With more details for us, here's our royal correspondent Sarah Campbell.
It's an article entitled "The Losses We Share," so it's wider than just Meghan's experience, but obviously she relates it to what we now know happened in July of this year. And she starts by saying, after changing Archie's diaper, she said she felt a sharp cramp. She dropped to the floor with him in her arms, humming a lullaby, she said, to keep us both calm, as she knew that something wasn't right. She says, "As I clutched my firstborn child, I knew that I was losing my second." And it goes on in detail to talk about the distress that she and Prince Harry suffered earlier this year. As I say, in July of this year, suffered a miscarriage, and also sort of relates it to the fact that this is can be a relatively common occurrence. And lots of women talk about it or experience it, but don't talk about it. She says that, they learned that in a room of 100 women, 10 to 20 of them will have suffered a miscarriage, and yet the conversation remains taboo. So relating her own experience and perhaps hoping that this may give women the courage to talk about what is obviously a very painful and distressing experience for so many people. Living in America now, they are living in a house in Santa Barbara in California. She's talking about this Thanksgiving. Of course, in the States tomorrow it's Thanksgiving. She says, "As we plan for a holiday unlike any before, many of us separated from our loved ones, alone, sick, scared and divided. Let us commit to asking others, are you okay?" The significance of that sentence, of course, was that it was in an interview with an ITN reporter a couple of years ago that really sort of made it obvious that things weren't happy with Meghan. The journalist asked her, "Are you okay?" And she said, "Well, people, thank you for asking. People haven't asked me that question." And so she's really saying we need to be asking each other more, "Are you okay?" And that's really the sort of the thrust of the article. But as you would expect, because she is such a high-profile person, people will be focusing today on the very personal news that she and Prince Harry suffered a miscarriage in July of this year.
There has been a huge reaction worldwide to this opinion piece, particularly for women and men who themselves have experienced a miscarriage or stillbirth. The family we're about to talk to have sent us these photographs of their daughter Avery, who was stillborn at 7 months. For them, it's really important to capture the short time they had with her, and they hope that by speaking about their experience, it will help break down the stigma. Nicole and Stephen Chidgey live in Manchester. They now have 2 sons, Hunter and Eden, but they continue to remember the life of their daughter Avery. And I'm pleased to say they are with me now to share some of their experiences and to talk about the blog that they started off, to just talk about some of the things that happened to them and to share their experiences with other parents. Lovely to see you both, Nicole and Stephen, and thank you for taking this time. It's really important for us to talk to families like yours who've experienced loss in this way. Nicole, I wanted to start by asking you just, how you felt about Meghan's piece and the things she had to say.
I think for me, obviously it's heartbreaking to hear that again that another person has gone through loss and has to experience the grief that you do go through. She's really creating a platform for women to start speaking, and I know across the loss community this morning everyone's talking about it and everyone's really relating to the words that she's saying. I know for me, especially when it first happened to me in 2016, no high-profile people had ever come out that they'd been through pregnancy loss before, and I felt really alone when it happened because I didn't know anyone, and I thought I was the only person in the world that it had ever happened to. So it's just really nice to know that more high-profile people are coming out there and speaking about it and creating that platform for millions of families that have been through it that feel alone.
So, Nicole, when she talks about Meghan, the taboo of miscarriage and almost that sense of shame, is that still true, do you think, or are things also changing on that front?
I think things are changing slightly, but it is absolutely still a taboo subject. If you've not experienced loss, people don't want to hear about it. A perfect example would be the negative criticism Chrissy Teigen's received recently for sharing her side of the experience. People like to remain very naive to it and not know about it because it is such a negative thing to happen. But the reality is it's a very real thing that happens every day. So we do need to be talking about it more, but there is a long way to go. It's a very under-researched and a very under-talked about subject.
And Stephen, if women aren't talking about it, I'm sure many men aren't talking about it either. How did you feel when you experienced the loss of your daughter? Were there any men that you felt that you could reach out to and talk to about this?
It was very, very difficult. There wasn't anybody directly because, as Nicole said, we weren't aware of other people going through this. We were really naive. We thought she was our first daughter, so it was just a case of you get pregnant, you have a baby, and that's that. And when it happened, it was a huge shock, and it took us months to be able to realise that there are other people out there. But as such, I was very fortunate that, like, I was really open with Nicole, and we were very close. So she was my biggest sort of person to speak to, as well as my parents. But otherwise, there wasn't really anybody that I could reach out to that would understand it from a sort of a personal level, until we came across Tommy's and a rainbow clinic where I reached out to another father. It was like a meeting, so a coffee morning where you just got the opportunity to talk to other fathers and other couples. And that for me was a real turning point, because you can't get the same support talking to the same person who's been through it in your household or somebody who doesn't understand. So that kind of level of outreach was a huge part in my road to recovery, if you like.
So, Stephen, do you think it's really important that Meghan talked about Harry and talked about his pain, his heart being broken as well?
Yeah, most definitely, because I think, like, in society, like, the male has the alpha male response where you've got to be strong, and I know I certainly wouldn't allow any of my pain in, whilst Nicole was kind of at the height of going through the whole delivery process and all of that kind of thing. But it's so important to remember that, one, if you are a guy who's been through it, you need to talk to somebody, and it's okay not to be okay, rather than trying to be the strength all the time. And I just think that those outreaches that, like, Sans and Tommy's have created is incredible, because, as I say, speaking to other males about it is so important. So I think she's done a really good thing for the whole organisation, really, to try and help males, because it's just so important.
I think you're both very brave for talking to us. But Nicole, I wonder if you also think that it took a real level of bravery from Meghan to speak out about this so publicly, knowing as well, of course, there's going to be some backlash from some people too.
Absolutely. And there'll always be backlash, I imagine, when you're in the spotlight. But I think more than anything, what I think she must be really feeling right now is actually she's had a weight lifted off her chest, because to hold in something so painful like that must be really, really difficult. I know you live in fear of the questions. When people don't know what you've been through, you live in fear of people asking, oh, when's the next baby coming? And I'm sure she really lived in fear of that. And, I just think it's amazing that she spoke out. But I imagine that it's actually been really good for her to do that. And the positive messages that you receive from people saying you've helped them will absolutely outweigh the negative ones.
Well, you have both helped many people today as well by speaking to us, and we're really pleased to hear that Hunter and Eden are doing so well, and you're a happy family together. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much.